everyone, my name is Puppet, and today I will be doing the best books and the worst books of 2021 that I read. So they're not specifically books that came out in 2021, they're just books that I happened to read in 2021, but some of these did come out in 2021. But I decided to combine the best and the worst books that I read in one video because I didn't have that many worst books. I only have 3, so I might as well just combine the 2 videos together. And so let's go ahead and get started. The first worst book that I read in 2021 is Night of the Mannequins by Stephen Graham Jones. I was really excited to read this book because of the premise of it. It's about this guy and he has a group of friends, and one of his friends gets a job at a movie theater. So him and his group of friends decide to play a prank on the friend that works at the movie theater, and so they put a mannequin in the theater room, and then all of a sudden the mannequin just stands up and walks out of the room, and it's a killer mannequin, and it sounded very interesting. It's a short book, and it's only like 120 something pages long, and I only got to page 56, and I really did try reading this book because the premise was so interesting to me, but I ended up not finishing this book, and I think it's mostly because of the writing style. I could not immerse myself in the story. I didn't really care about the characters, and I just had a really hard time reading. I kept picking it up, putting it down. I would read like maybe 3 pages, put it down. I'll pick it back up the next day, try to read it again, and then I put it back down. I'll pick it up, and I would have to reread what I just read because I was like zoning out, and I just could not focus. So it has to be one of the worst books that I've read because it was putting me to sleep. And I really do think it was just the writing style. I think the story itself might have been really interesting if I kept going, but I just had no interest in finishing it, and so I had to put it down. The next book would be Hairpin Bridge by Taylor Adams. I was actually really disappointed in this book because the author wrote No Exit, which is a very great book, awesome thriller. I loved it. So when I heard this book was coming out, I thought, I don't care what it's about, I'm gonna read this book, and I did, and it was not good. So what this book is about is there's a girl named Lena and her twin sister. She jumped off a bridge and died, and this cop like made like the statement, like filed the statement of like what happened, like it was a suicide, and Lena was not convinced, so she decides to go back to Hairpin Bridge and really find out what happened to her twin sister. And it was not good. It was like the writing style was okay, but the story itself was not. The character, I didn't really feel connected to her, or like I cared about what was happening. I don't remember what movie I was thinking about when I was reading this book, and it just gave me like vibes. I can't remember what it was, like vibes where I was like frustrated and like anxious. I'm like, where have I like seen a premise similar to this? And the action sequences, it kind of made no sense because somehow the protagonist wouldn't really get hurt, and I can't remember if she ended up getting hurt. But of course, like when you have action sequences throughout the beginning of the book early on, you just know nothing's really gonna happen because you still have all this long way to go. And so everything starts happening at the end of the book, and it just didn't really feel believable, and I don't know, I didn't enjoy it, and I was pretty disappointed in this book. And the last book for the worst book of 2021, which should be no surprise, is Survive the Night by Riley Sager. This book is about a girl whose name I forgot. Let me look real quick. Charlie. Her name is Charlie. and Charlie's best friend was murdered, and the serial killer's still out there, and he's killed other women, and he hasn't been caught, so he's out there, right? And Charlie decides to go home. She's in college and she decides to go home, so she decides to hitch a ride with a complete stranger while a serial killer is out there. And the stranger's name is Josh, and really weird things start happening throughout the ride, like clues that he might be a killer, and she has to survive the night. This book was terrible. I'd probably give this a 0 out of 5 stars. One of the things that bothered me really on in the beginning of the story was the fact that it was mentioned that Charlie sees movies in her head, so it plays into the trope of you don't know what's real and what is, and is trying to make like a plot twist in her head. I don't know. And it just doesn't work for me. I don't like those tropes, like what's real, what's not, unless you make it work, but it did not work in this book. And the fact that her best friend was murdered and she decides to get in a stranger's car in the middle of the night, okay, because like they decided to go start the road trip dead at night where no one's around, and then he is like really weird, and there's just all these little clues that he has like fake license plates, a fake driver license, and like she's in her head like, oh my god, may he be the serial killer? Like, girl, obviously he's hiding his identity, he might be a serial killer. But if you know Riley Sager, you would know that he tends to have plot twists at the end of the book, so whatever it seems like is happening is actually not. There's something else, there's that twist that makes it seem like, oh, like it looked like this, the scenario looked like this, but it's actually this, and there's a whole explanation about why everything looked the way it was, or why everything was happening the way it was. So reading Home Before Dark and then reading this one, I just knew that Josh was, oh, this is gonna be a spoiler obviously, but honestly, like, this book is bad and I don't recommend it, so I'm gonna just go ahead and say it, that Josh is not the killer. And I just knew it the moment I picked up the book, because Riley Sager always has that plot twist at the end. I just knew that even though there was all this evidence with his fake driver license, different license plates, and like all the weird things that kind of hinted he might be the serial killer, there's gonna be an explanation for that, and he was not the killer. So there was literally no suspense, no feeling of risks in this book, because I just knew it was not him, and I don't know how or who it was gonna be, but I just knew it was not him, and there was gonna be an explanation at the end. And one scene really did bother me, because Charlie's boyfriend had called the cops, and he's like, hey, my girlfriend might be in danger. So a cop goes to this diner where Josh and Charlie were at, and Charlie's thinking Josh is a serial killer, and there's this waitress named Marge, and she walks up to the table and she's talking to them, and Josh holds a knife in his hand, and he kind of like points it at Marge underneath the table. I think it was underneath the table. He points it at her, and he's like eyeing Charlie like, hey, if you try anything, I will stab her. He didn't say it, but he was like giving her those eyes, you know, like, don't try any funny business, because the cop was in the diner too, asking like, hey, I got a call, is everything okay, like, you know. So he was like, don't say anything or this lady will get hurt. So Charlie's like, I can't say anything, you know, I can't put the lady's life at risk. I'm like, okay, that's fine. But then the cop decides to sit down at the diner and eat something, and the waitress walks away. And so with Josh sitting across from her, it's a perfect opportunity for her to just scream help, or like dash out of the seat and just say, he has a knife, help, or something. But she doesn't. Instead, she lets the cop leave the diner. She goes into the bathroom, pep talks herself up, saying, you know what, like, he's killed other women, he killed my best friend, but I can do this. I'm gonna take down this man all by myself, even though he's way stronger than me and have so many more advantages than me. And I'm gonna take him down by my own. I'm gonna get back in that car and risk my whole life just to take him down myself. And it makes no sense. And I don't even remember. I remember who the killer ends up being, but I don't remember his motive. But I don't really care. And the sad thing is, I was so excited about this book because it sounded so interesting. And I was actually at the time watching a YouTube video about gamers who would play a game called what was it called? It was called Passenger? No. Rides with Strangers? I don't remember, but I'm gonna have to look this up. But it was about like, it was like a demo about a girl. You start at the, it was like you start out on the street and you have to like wave down a car, and the car pulls over and you get in, and it's this creepy man, and he turns out to be like a priest or something, or like a man of God, and he like you just have to survive throughout the ride, okay? But your anxiety bar goes up, and you have to like look out the window to like calm down, but then you have to look at him because he might like try touching you and reaching out for you, and you cannot let him grab you or else you lose. And like there's a jump scare at the end. Oh my god, it was that time I was watching that, and I was so excited because that premise sounded just like this one, and it turned out to be such a letdown. But the cover is beautiful though, but it was just the worst book I read. Moving on to the best books of 2021 that I read. The first one would be A History of Wild Places by Shea Earnshaw. I've read her work before, like The Wicked Deep and Winterwood, which are all YA books, and I don't like YA books, but those I liked. And from those books, I was able to kind of already predict the twist at the end, but what was most enjoyable was the writing style, and same goes with this book. Let me tell you what it's about. It's about a guy named Travis, and he gets hired by a family to look for their missing daughter named Maggie St. James. And so he has this ability where he touches objects. He could see memories related to the object from the past. So he goes looking for Maggie, and he ends up at this place called Pastoral, and he goes missing. So now a few years later, we're following two members from Pastoral, and they're living here because nobody goes in and nobody goes out of Pastoral, because there's this thing called the rot, and if you go outside the borders you might get the disease, and so it's very dangerous, and they stay inside their borders of Pastoral. And they just Theo, he discovers, he knows about Travis, and he's like wondering like what happened to him, like he came here but like where is he at. So there's this mystery going on to like what happened to these two people from Pastoral, and it was just such a great read for me. Shea Earnshaw does not disappoint. Her writing is very beautiful, it flows so easily. She has a way of storytelling that you just ride along, you know, even though you can kind of sometimes predict the end. Like I kind of figured something, like the twist at the end, but I wasn't really sure like how or like anything. But I enjoy the journey, okay? And I enjoy this book a lot. I'm gonna give this book a good, a good thumbs up. I really like it. I would recommend, and I will continue to read Shea Earnshaw. Next book is Kristin Hannah's The Four Winds. This is actually the first book I read of Kristin Hannah's, and I was really surprised. I wasn't sure I would love this book, and I ended up loving it. I actually found myself tearing up a bit, and it's about a family, and it takes place in the Great Depression in the Dust Bowl, and their land is actually drying up. There's no crops, there's no rain, and they're struggling. And so the mom, Elsa, has to make a decision whether she wants to stay in her land and fight for it or leave it and start anew. And this book is really sad. Even though it's over 400 pages long, I found myself finishing this book very quickly. The writing is beautiful, it flows easily, it's such a simple and straight to the point book. Yeah, I found myself tearing up a bit. And I would give this book a 5 out of 5 stars, and I would definitely check out more of her work. I've always heard really good things about The Nightingale, so I might just read that one, and I really like this. I would definitely find myself rereading this book in the future, and the cover is also really beautiful. So next book is Infinite Country Infinite Country by Patricia Engel. This book is about a Colombian family and how they migrate from Colombia to America. And the family is separated, but you follow each of their way of living. Some of them in Colombia and some of them in America, and how they live as being immigrants or someone who's trying to go to America and reunite with their family. And this book is very touching, and I feel myself tearing up in some of the scenes. You know, as a Hispanic, I always hear stories about immigrants and, you know, people crossing borders and what it takes. And you hear on the news, like, really sad stories that you hear about people trying to cross from, you know, South America to come to America and all the things that happen. And it's just like, this is one story of a family. And, you know, there's like millions, and there's just so many variations to stories. But, like, I know I'm getting a little bit off topic about the book, but this book makes me think about that. You know, this one story of a family, and there's like millions of families that are immigrants and what they go through, you know, and it involves stories about the land of Colombia and how certain things came to be. And I definitely recommend. It's a short book, and it's very simple and beautifully written, and it makes me think a lot about, you know, immigrants and what they go through. You know, I'm just repeating myself, but like, this book just makes me really think about what people go through and what it takes to just leave your land behind and move somewhere new. You know, you leave everything you know, everybody you love, and you just gotta do it. You just do it because you want to live better. You do it for your family. You do it for your future. And I definitely recommend this book. 5 out of 5. I'll give this a 6 out of 5 stars because the cover is even beautiful. I mean, look at it. It's just so beautiful, and I am so glad I read this book. It's probably one of my favorite ones that I read this year, besides the other ones. But yeah, this is totally one of like my top books, and I will probably find myself rereading this book over and over in the future. And the last book is The Beautiful Ones by Silvio Moreno Garcia. And it is about Nina, who has telekinetic powers, and in her town people think she's weird, and her cousin who lives in this city says, hey, you should come over, you know, it's time for you to get courted. And she says, okay. So she goes over for the time with her cousin, and her cousin has a wife named Valerie, and she's kind of like, you know, she's like the mean girl. And she meets a man, Nina meets a man named Hector, and he also has telekinetic powers, and she ends up falling in love with him. But Hector is in love with Nina's cousin's wife, and she doesn't know that. And that's the premise of the book. And honestly, I think it's one of my favorite Silvio Moreno Garcia books, besides Gods of Jade and Shadow. It's just very easy flowing, and I love the characters, I love the setting, and I love the romance in this book. Even though it's not like super heavy romance, it's like it's just romance, but it's not like super heavy. It flows very easily, and it could get a little bit slow at times, but it's never like slow, because it's not the type of slow like, oh my god, nothing is happening. It's like, okay, they're talking, but they're bonding. You know, it's essential for them to build this connection to each other and get to know each other. And I think it's great. I think it works. And as soon as I finished the book, I wanted to reread it, and I would definitely recommend this book. I gave this book I don't remember if it was a 4 out of 5 or 4.5 out of 5, because I didn't think the telekinetic powers were necessary in the book. But with or without it, it works. There was just some scenes that I remember thinking, I was like, well, she has these powers, why doesn't she use them to do this? But other than that, it wasn't anything big where I was like, oh my god, that's so stupid. Like, no, but this book is really good. I do like it. I would definitely be reading this book, and it's one of my favorites, and I'm so glad I read it. So please read it. And if you guys want something to read, you know, please pick a book from the best books of 2021 from my list. Okay, go ahead and pick one. And I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I don't know how to transition, so I'm just gonna end it like right now because I gotta go to work. So hope you guys enjoyed this video from my best and worst books of 2021, and if you have read these books, let me know if you like them, what you think about them, if you disagree with me, or what made you love them or hate them, and see you next time.